Lesson 4, Configuring Tape, Storage, and Media. This is Lesson 4 of Lesson 9. In the lessons and objectives, we'll take a look at NetBackup storage device concepts, learning more about storage devices, how to configure them, storage units, and storage unit groups. Also taking a look at how to identify NetBackup tape storage unit types. We'll take a look at configuring tape devices using the device configuration wizard, which is the most popular method to configure your new tape devices. We'll take a look at NetBackup media concepts, describing what a volume is, volume pools, volume groups. We'll also take a look at configuring media using the volume configuration wizard and the robot inventory mechanism. Verifying tape storage, being able to monitor those devices once they've already been created within the NetBackup admin console. NetBackup storage device concepts. Here we're going to take a look at the storage devices, storage units, and storage unit groups. Think back on the first lesson on storage devices, what a storage device actually is. It's a physical destination for your backup jobs. That consists of tape drives and hard disks within a file system. Then on the logical side, we've got your storage units. The storage units are where the data is actually sent. Some of the rules and regulations are listed below. On one media server is the first and foremost thing. So each media server in your environment has to have a minimum of one storage unit associated with that. If you've got a disk drive and a tape drive, you would have a minimum of 2 storage units associated with that media server. The next rule on here is controlled by the same robot. If you had 2 libraries attached to one media server, each library would have to have their own storage unit because each one has their own robot of the same type and density, as well as have the same write properties. If you had a library that had 2 different types of drives in that, your best option is to create 2 storage units for that one library. We'll take a look at some examples later in this lesson. Storage unit groups. This is a great way to allow NetBackup to choose the best suited mechanism to send your backup jobs to. So that would consist of 2 or more storage units grouped together. And we'll take a look at some great examples of this as well later in the lesson. Here we've got storage devices and storage units. So as this diagram shows, we've got a NetBackup master EMM server, which is attached via fiber. There's 2 media servers, Media Server 1 and Media Server 2, and they both have access to this tape silo. The tape silo has 50 drives. As you can see, Media Server 1 is basically owning and operating in zone to be able to see drives 1 through 25. Media Server 2 can see drives 26 through 50. So in this particular instance, we can actually set up Media Server 1 as Storage Unit A. Storage Unit A would consist of all the drives from drive number 1 to drive number 25. In Storage Unit B, that would be belonging to Media Server number 2, and that would consist of drives 26 through 50. This is one way of setting up how storage units can function. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about shared storage option, or what's commonly known as SSO. As we mentioned before, this is how our lab environment is going to function for class. On here, we now see the same exact scenario. We still have a master server, EMM, attached with the fiber switch and the 2 media servers with the same tape silo with the 50 drives. But the way that we've actually zoned the switch and the media servers, both media servers can actually see and access all 50 drives. So in this particular instance, Storage Unit A that's associated again with Media Server 1 now can actually contain all 50 drives, 1 through 50. Same thing with Media Server 2. Now how this works, if you're thinking of double allocation, it's the EMM portion, the Enterprise Media Manager of NetBackup, that controls which media server has access to those drives during a backup job and or a restore. So this is how we don't double dip on those devices. Here we have Media Manager storage unit types. On the Media Manager storage units, you can see that we have tape robots and standalone tape drives. While standalone tape drives are not that popular, they are still possible within the NetBackup environment. We also have another option called NDMP, Network Data Management Protocol Storage Units. So if you have an NDMP server, a file server attached either directly or through your network to your media server, you can set that up as an NDMP storage type. Let's take a look at some different examples of how storage units can get created in an environment. So here we've expanded this diagram to now show you we still have those two same media servers. We still have the tape silo with the 50 drives in it. We're still doing the SSO. Your storage unit A is still associated with media server 1 with 1 through 50 drives. Media server 2 is still associated with the 1 through 50 drives. That would be belonging to storage unit B. And now just to show you how you can attach yet another type of library, now that new library, because it has another robot, would have to be considered another storage unit. So we would name that one storage unit C. Let's take a look at the storage unit groups. In storage unit groups, this is a way to tell NetBackup that you don't mind which storage unit group gets chosen as long as it's within that component. So we still, let's see, we have a master server with 4 media servers. Media server A, B, C, and D. Media server A through C has tape libraries for devices. Media server D actually has a disk. So we can group these together. Let's call the one HQ Data Center Group. HQ Data Center Group, the one with the red line, consists of 2 libraries, Robot 0 and Robot 1. We have to pre-confine the storage units first. So the first one belonging to host A is storage unit A. The one that belonging to media server B is storage unit B. Now, depending on how you set them up in the storage unit, this particular one's done priority. So once a backup job is initiated toward the HQ data center group, it will automatically attempt to try and write backup jobs to storage unit A before going to storage unit B. If storage unit A happens to be busy, then the job will automatically go to storage unit B. That's the nice thing about creating storage unit groups, is it gives you the flexibility. If one of your storage units is busy or offline, it'll automatically attempt to try and go to the next one in line. Now, by using storage unit groups, we can actually reuse the storage units. Let's take a look at the blue line area where it talks about global sites. In global sites, we've got them listed as storage unit B is first, storage unit A is second, storage unit C is third, and lastly we've listed storage unit D. Now if you notice, both of these can be in your NetBackup configuration. That's telling you that we are actually reusing storage unit A and B because it was part of the HQ data center group. So on here, the first time a backup job is written to this storage unit, it'll automatically try storage unit B first. Then it will try A, and then C, and then D, depending on if they are busy or in use. Here we have storage unit group configuration. In storage unit group configuration on the window, we can see the top area asks for a storage unit group name. This is where you're going to enter in the name of the storage unit group. It really helps to be as detailed as possible so that you know for future backups what storage units are going to be in that storage unit group. The next box is the storage units that are actually in that group. I'll skip this and come back to it in a second. The box beneath that is the storage units not in a group. This will actually list all the storage units that you've configured in your NetBackup environment. From these storage units, you will highlight them and use the Add button to add them into the storage unit group that you are trying to create. From that, you can highlight those storage units and select the Move Up and Move Down buttons to organize those storage units for that storage unit group. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have a table which defines the different selections that are offered. The prioritized actually puts them in the order that NetBackup will use them. So in our particular instance, it will attempt to try and use the Master Advanced Disk 1 before going to the Master Advanced Disk 2. So anytime this particular storage unit group is selected with prioritization, it will always use Master Advanced Disk 1 if it's available. Next we have failover. Failover will only use Advanced Disk 1 unless, of course, there's something wrong with Advanced Disk 1, whether the drives are down or the media server itself is offline. That's the only time it will use Advanced Disk 2 is in that scenario. The next selection is the round robin. The round robin will continue to keep using each storage unit in succession. So again, in our example, if we had selected the round robin option for this storage unit group, we would actually see Master Advanced Disk 1 being selected for the first backup. The next time this particular storage unit group is selected, it would choose Master Advanced Disk 2. The third time this storage unit group was selected, it would go back to using the Master Advanced Disk 1. Lastly, we have media server load balancing. This is where NetBackup actually comes into play to analyze which storage unit would be the best storage unit for this backup job. We'll take a look at this in a couple of slides. Here we have some examples on storage unit group selection. So to try and show you exactly what prioritization versus round robin versus failover is all about, we can see we've got a master server and our two media servers. Each media server has 2 drives in its library. If we look below that, prioritization, this is the order of the group. We want it to go to media server 1 first and then go to media server 2. We have these 5 jobs. So the first job, as you can see, will end up getting sent to media server 1. The second job, because it's prioritization, we're still going to attempt to try and use media server 1 as that's still top of our list. Finally, when both drives are busy on media server 1, the third job, once it's initiated, will automatically go to media server 2 since it's second on the list. It's the first one that's actually available. And the fourth job will also go to media server 2. As you can see, the fifth job, we run out of drives, so that one gets queued. If by chance one of the other jobs finished, then job number 5 would go to the best available drive for that job. In round robin, let's take a look at this. This is what we would commonly refer to as the load balancing mechanism before we actually had load balancing. So on here, try to do your best attempt at actually using both media servers. So on here, we can see that they've labeled this group least used group. We also have media server 1 listed first and media server 2 listed second. The first job goes to media server 1. The second job, instead of going to media server 1, again, we're trying to load balance or round robin, it gets sent over to media server 2. The third job will go back over to media server 1, and then the fourth job will go to media server 2. And the fifth job, again, we've run out of drives to do this job, so it gets queued until a device is available. On failover, you can see in this particular instance that we have still media server 1 listed and media server 2. The first job is going to go to media server 1. The second job also goes to media server 1. And like I said before, the only way that we get to use media server 2 is if the drives are down on media server 1 or media server 1 is down and offline. That's the only attempt. Typically the failover is set up so that your media servers are usually in different cities or maybe even in different continents. You only want it to go to a different media server under dire restraints. Let's take a look at that media server load balancing. So again, on the media server load balancing, the first thing it's going to analyze is take a look at the server ranking. Our server rankings inside the EMM server is going to be based on 0 through 3. So if all 3 of our media servers listed in a storage unit group all have the same exact ranking, the next tie-off for this is going to be the media server with the fewest number of jobs. Given again, if all of those media servers have the exact same number of jobs running, then the next tie-off is going to be the least reserved space. We will try and attempt to send that backup job to a media server that has more space available for it. And lastly, if it has all the same exact reserved space or utilized space on that, it will go to the least recently used. It basically goes back to the round robin effect on it. Let's take a look at configuring tape devices. So, preparing for device configuration. We will make sure that the attached hardware devices to the server that acts as the device host. We'll also take a look at installing the appropriate drivers. You'll need to confirm that the devices are available through the operating system long before NetBackup can be able to see that. After NetBackup is installed, you can use the operating system specific utilities to test those devices. It's a wise choice for that. Then you'll need to collect device identification information. There's storage device and storage unit configuration methods. So the easiest way to do your devices into NetBackup is to configure your device through the device configuration wizard. Another mechanism is to do it through the administration console. You can use the media and device management utility as well as the NetBackup management interfaces for that. The command line interface you can run as tpconfig. That would work both for Unix and Windows. For complete command line, it's bpstu add. Let's take a look at configuring storage devices using the wizard. The nice thing about the wizard is it does perform auto discovery. So you don't necessarily have to get all the device configuration information for you. This is the preferred method for configuring your devices. This can be used to also configure your drive name rules, robot properties, drive properties, and your storage units. Let's take a look at the wizard. Again, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the administration console. You have at the top the master server hostname. You'll need to select the master server hostname and all of the wizards will appear. You need to choose the configure storage devices. You'll select that and you get the welcome screen. We'll select next. From here it's going to ask you querying all of the media servers or the device hosts. You will select which device hosts you want to work with. Then you can select next, which brings you to the screen on the right. This is the backup devices. So by selecting the media servers, you'll actually see which devices are on that media server. On here we've got the ADIC, we've got 2 quantum drives. If you selected the properties button on the screen, you would find more detailed information about those devices. We'll select next. The screen on the left shows drag and drop configuration. Typically, most devices today will have automatic discovery. We'll be able to figure out exactly which robot and which drives belong to which robot. If by chance your drives do not automatically sync up and they land in the standalone devices, you will need to highlight that device and drag it under the appropriate spot for that robot and drive. Once you have set this up, you can select next. At this point, we're going to configure storage units. The nice thing about the device configuration wizard is it automatically goes through creating a storage unit. Once you've told NetBackup about your drives and your robots, you will have to also tell it and configure some storage units. The devices cannot get used without having storage units associated with them. That is the logical portion of NetBackup. So in here, in this case, it comes up with kind of a long name for that storage unit. If you want to rename it, you can go in at this given time and change the name for that. As here we've highlighted the top storage unit, we will select that and click the Properties button, which brings up your Change Storage Unit. On the Storage Unit section, this is where you can go in and change the name of the storage unit. Notice here we changed to something a little bit easier to read. tape_stu_win_master. All the rest of the entries you can choose to adjust if need be at this time. If you're satisfied with the information on the storage unit screen, you can select OK. Once you've created your devices and your storage units, let's take a look at the results for this. Underneath the Media and Device Management Tree View section, we're going to go underneath Devices and choose Drives. On the drives, we've highlighted this and we can actually see our 2 tape drives that we just got done creating. If we highlight one of the tape drives, we can right-click and choose Change Tape Drives. That's the larger screen you'll see here. There's the name of the tape drive, and we can actually see that 2 hosts are associated with this same tape drive. We have Win Master and we have Win Media Server. And then the device information that was automatically put in there via the device configuration wizard. We'll select OK. To be able to view robot information, underneath Devices, we'll choose Robots. We can highlight one of the robots. We can right-click and choose Properties and Change. Under the Change Robot section, you can see the robot type that's listed here. NetBackup automatically starts the robot configuration numbers at 0. On here you can see the robot control host. There are 3 options for the robot control host. The first option is the robot is controlled locally by that device host. The device host is the part that's grayed out at the top of the screen. The second option is the robot is handled by a remote host. That would be another media server in your environment that has control over that robot. The third option is the robot control is attached to an NDMP host. As you can see here, since the robot is controlled locally by that device host, down towards the bottom of the screen, it's going to ask for the path that is being used by that media server. You can select Browse, and that will plug in the path for it. On here, we're viewing the Media Manager Storage Unit properties. Underneath the NetBackup Management in the tree view, we can select Storage, and then we can select Storage Units. You can see all the storage units that were created for this. If you highlight one of the storage units, you can select right-click and choose Change, and you can see the Change Storage Unit option. As you can see on here, pretty much the name and the storage unit type is grayed out. If you need to change any of these, you would have to delete the storage unit and start again. The on-demand only option, that is automatically selected for disk, and we will get into that at a later lesson. It's not necessarily here for your tape storage units. The next area down is the media server area. On the media server, you can choose exactly which media server should be able to access and operate this storage unit. In this particular case, we're setting this one up for Win Master. However, the default is typically any available media server can access and run that storage unit. We'll select OK. The on-demand only, in this option here, we'll have to get into another component that we haven't quite reached yet. At the very top, you'll see where it talks about 3 different policies. Each policy you must assign to a specific storage unit or any available. So let's take a look at policy number 1. We have storage unit A, which means that policy, any backup jobs for that policy are automatically going to go to storage unit A, which just so happens to be a tape library. In policy 2, the default is any available. So as you can see, that backup job can technically go to any available storage unit. In policy 3, we're specifically requesting that that policy send any backup jobs to storage unit D. Now, how these storage units were created is at the bottom of the screen. On storage unit A, even though that it was a tape library, somebody had gone in and selected that on-demand only feature. The rest of the storage units, B, C, and D, were left at any available, which means that the checkbox for on-demand only was not selected. So therefore, when these policies initiate, storage unit A will get selected for policy 1. When policy 2 gets initiated, it's any available. Because policy 2 did not specifically request storage unit A, it will not be sent to that storage unit. The only other storage units that are available for that are B, C, and D. And because policy 3 was specifically requested to storage unit D, that one can actually go to storage unit D. Next, we have NetBackup media concepts. Let's take a look at volumes, volume pools, and groups. So what are volumes? Volumes are going to be any removable piece of media. Pretty much the name volume and tape is interchangeable in NetBackup. So each tape is going to be considered a volume. Each side of an optical platter is a volume. every volume is assigned a unique media ID. That media ID, while the barcodes can be longer than 6 characters, NetBackup will only track up to 6 of those characters. Typically, like in an LTO tape, you could have 13, 15, 17 characters long in a barcode. NetBackup will only take the rightmost 6 characters for that. So we'll show you how to get around that a little bit later on in this lesson. So here's our media ID. Such as this that we're showing in our slide here, you can see the barcode is JYN256, and those tiny little characters S2 are also considered part of that barcode. So as I mentioned before, the default NetBackup is going to automatically only chop this to 6 characters. It will take the rightmost 6 characters. So according to NetBackup, it sees this particular media as N256S2. It does not track the J and the Y. What are volume pools? We visited this in an earlier lesson, but let's review. On volume pools, there are 4 default volume pools. We have the NetBackup volume pool, which is standard for all tapes. If you don't add any extra volume pools to this, all of your tapes will get dumped into the NetBackup volume pool. We have the data store pool. This is typically left over for third-party applications. We have the catalog backups. This is required in order to do catalog backups of your NetBackup environment. We also have the none pool. The none pool are saved for cleaning tapes. So anytime you actually set up cleaning tapes in your environment, they should automatically get dumped into the none pool. To set up other pools, you can create them. One of the main pools that typically we suggest to set up is something called a scratch pool. So that you're not having to monitor your other pools, you can put tapes in the scratch pool and they will be taken out as needed. When they expire, they will get dumped back into the scratch pool for future use. In this particular instance, we have an example that we've created a MyHR pool. We've also gone in and created a MyDB pool. So the MyHR pool has tapes available in that. The MyDB pool does not. So if we need a backup to go to the MyDB pool, that MyDB pool will pull tapes automatically from the scratch pool at the time a backup is needed, which requires less management for an administrator. Let's take a look at the scratch pool. So in this particular instance, we've got a whole listing of tapes or volumes that are in the scratch pool. Again, if one is needed in another pool, it'll automatically be allocated to that new pool for backups. So in our example here, again, we've got our 4 default pools, the NetBackup, the data store, the catalog, and the none. We have our special pool we created, our scratch pool, and then we've got a couple other ones, the accounting group and the HR group. In our library, you can see from the different shades and how they correspond to the different volume pools. If a tape is actually needed, let's say we're going to do a backup to the HR and maybe all the tapes that are already in blue are full or they have a different retention period than the one that we need to do now. So in that case, one of the tapes in the scratch pool will be temporarily allocated to that HR pool. So it would turn blue. And then once the tape is no longer needed and the data has expired off that tape, it will go back to the scratch pool and turn gray again. Let's take a look at volume groups. The one thing to note about volume groups is you cannot control volume groups. Once you create a library, a robot in your environment, NetBackup will automatically assign a volume group to that physical location. So when you put tapes in libraries and take them out of libraries, NetBackup will automatically, logically issue the name associated with that volume group to that piece of media. So in this particular instance, if we had a tape that was in a library, it would be known to this particular volume group, the 000 underscore, a bunch of zeros underscore TLD. If you eject that piece of media from that library, it gets moved into the none group. You can create your own volume groups. In this particular instance, we've shown that we've actually created one called Offsite. If you want, you can place that piece of media that's no longer part of the library into the off-site group. This is one great way of tracking media that is going to be vaulted. This slide is depicting how volume groups and volume pools interact. You can see here by the horizontal line that we have all the different volume pools. We've got the accounting volume pool, we've got the support volume pool, and the sales volume pool. Down at the bottom, we have all these volume groups. We've got the ones that are part of Robot 1 in that volume group. We've got the standalone volume group, and we've also got the offsite volume group. So you can see even the offsite volume group contains multiple different tapes in it. One's from the accounting volume pool, one's from the support volume pool, and one's from the sales volume pool. In this case, it's just trying to show you how the two can overlay each other. Configuring media. Configuring your volumes on here. The best and easiest way to configure your volumes is run through the volume configuration wizard, which basically uses the robot inventory under the covers. The nice thing about this is that you can actually inventory your robot, you can identify any of your cleaning media at the same time, you can add volumes for any of your standalone devices that you may have, and you'll also update that information into the EMM database. The next method that you can use is through the administration console. There's ways to manually add the media. It can be very tedious. It is highly suggested to use the robot inventory. The command line option as well. We have VM update to update the information into the EMM database. You can do it via the command line using VM add. VM delete would delete the media already in the database. You have VM query. VM query is more of a script or a utility to query the information that the EMM database actually has about the media belonging to that device. And then you have VM change, which would change any of the attributes that would have been assigned to the media itself. So let's see, preparing to run the volume configuration wizard. The first thing you can do is you want to create the scratch pools and any other volume pools in your configuration. You can generate barcode rules and you can generate media ID generation rules. We will take a look at these in the next few slides. Let's take a look at adding our scratch volume pool. So under the media and device management in the tree view, underneath media, the first option is volume pools. You can right click, choose new, and enter in the name of the volume pool. You can enter in a description. Now to make a scratch volume pool, there's a little checkbox down towards the bottom of the new volume pool configuration dialog box. Choose that for the scratch pool. It really doesn't matter that you name your scratch pool. You just need to make sure that that checkbox is selected. So we'll click OK. Next, to actually go through and update NetBackup about your volumes. Again, we could be at the top of our screen, making sure we're choosing the master server host name, which populates all of our wizards. We'll scroll down a little bit to choose the configure volume wizard, which we get the welcome screen for, and we'll select next. On here, you do need to specify which tape library, which media server, and which tape library you want to configure your volumes for. We've selected the WinMaster tape library. Let's highlight that and select next. Then you get the option to specify if you have multiple drive types exist. Typically this is not the case in most environments, such as if you had a DLT 7000 or an LTO4, any of those types, it's all one type in a library. If you had multiple LTO4s and LTO3s in a library, then yes, you would select the yes option for that. Other than that, you want to make sure you select no, that you have all the same drive type. NetBackup will automatically configure the drive type for you. In this case, it shows type DLT3. We'll select next. Here we get to the screen called Robot Inventory. We want to configure some advanced options, especially if this is the first time you're configuring your NetBackup environment. You want to set these up right away. We'll click Advanced Options button, which brings up our Robot Inventory screen. In order to get into the advanced options, you need to make sure that you choose advanced options on the robot inventory screen. We're not quite there yet. Here's finally the advanced robot inventory options. We have 3 tabs at the top. We have media settings, we have barcode rules, and media ID generation rules. The media settings tabs is for one-time use. So if you only want these settings to hit this particular robot inventory, then you can choose the media settings tab to set it. Otherwise, if you want this rules and regulations to use for future inventories, you want to make sure that you set up the barcode rules tab and the media ID generations tab. Let's check out barcode rules. On barcode rules, by default, there are no barcode rules. You would need to select the New button down towards the bottom of the window, which will open up the new barcode rule. In this particular instance, it's pretty common to have cleaning tapes in your library, so we're going to show you an example of cleaning tapes. The barcode tags for most cleaning tapes are labeled CLN, so we've entered in the barcode tag as CLN. It defaults to 25 cleanings. If you know for sure your vendor allows for more than 25 cleanings, then you can enter that information in. Next, we need to make sure that the media type is correct. Now, if you remember before, our tapes were going to be set up as DLT3 type. We need to make sure that the media type also reflects that. Because we're doing cleaning tapes, be very cautious when you use the drop-down arrow to make sure you select the correct cleaning tape. In this case, it's DLT Cleaning Tape 3. The other options in there are cartridge tape, so make sure that you have cleaning versus cartridge tape. In the description, you can enter a description. We just put here cleaning tape. We'll click OK. You can see the results on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll select OK. Next, we get over to the Media ID Generation tab. The Media ID Generation tab will help you to tell NetBackup which characters you want NetBackup to track. If you recall, in the beginning of this lesson, we talked about NetBackup only being able to take a hold of 6 of those media IDs on any of the barcodes. So in this particular instance, you can create which 6 characters you want NetBackup to track. Again, if it's different from the rightmost 6 characters. So some of the fields you'll need to fill out. First of all, you'll have to start by clicking the New button in this window, which will bring up your new media ID generation rule dialog box. You need to choose which robot number you want to assign this media ID generation rule to. If you have multiple different robots, you will have to set up the robot number for each one independently. It will not function for all of your robots. Next is the barcode length. This is extremely critical. You need to make sure that the barcode length matches the number of characters in your current barcode. So if you have multiple different lengths of barcodes in that library, you'll have to make sure that you create multiple different rules for that library as well. In this instance, we're using the barcode length of 8. Now finally we get to the rules section. In the rules section, of those 8 characters, which ones do we want to use? In this particular case, we want to use the placeholder of 3, followed by a colon, and 4, a colon, 5, colon, 6, colon, 7, colon, 8. You can use up to 6 characters. That's it. And it will take those 6 characters, 3 through 8. We'll click OK, and you can see your results. So once you've entered in the different tabs, you get presented back into the robot inventory screen. This is where you can select the Start button. The Start button will take those rules that you just applied and apply that to the information that's going to gather from the library. And you'll get results in the results window. Once you're satisfied with the results, you can click Close. You'll finally get presented back to the volume configuration wizard, where you either get the option to choose more volumes to configure, or you can select Finish. You can take a look at your handiwork in the lower portion of the window by selecting for the media, and you can see all your media results. So if you see the media results, it said we added 14 volumes from that volume configuration. You see the media IDs that were added and then the actual barcode. If you notice, the barcode length is longer, but we will only really be tracking and marking information about the actual media IDs, which will be 6 characters. This is a summary screen that shows information about the robot inventory utilities. All of the information that we just got done running through on the volume configuration wizard can be seen here and used via the command line or the administration console. Verifying tape storage. To be able to verify tape storage, you can select underneath the Media and Device Management in the tree view, there's Device Monitor. You can see all your devices within here. In this particular one, we've highlighted the top drive. You can right-click and see all the menu options. You have the ability to up the drive, down the drive, reset a drive. You can do drive cleanings, change drive comments, and then we can actually view drive details. By selecting Drive Details, we're showing here the Drive Details window. You can see all the information that was gathered during your device configuration. Down towards the bottom, you can see the different paths. In our particular environment, as I mentioned before, we have what we call a shared storage option. That means both our media servers are going to be able to access the one tape drive. You can see on the drive path the two different hosts. We have WinMaster that has access to that tape drive, and we have WinMediaServer. You can also use the command vmopr-cmd to access the same exact information. Taking a look at all the media that we just got done running an inventory for. On the Media and Device Management, there's the media option. You can select the media and you can see all of the media that was added. You've got your media IDs, your barcodes, the media type, the robot number, the slots. There's plenty of information in this window. You can see you can scroll way off to the right as well. The VM query command with the -A would list all of this out via command line as well. And then the command beneath that, the NVEMM-CMD, list media, all records, brief, is another command that would also be suited for this. In the lesson summary, let's take a look at what we talked about in this lesson. We worked on creating storage devices, storage units, storage unit groups, your volumes, volume pools, and volume groups. We showed you how to configure your devices using the device configuration wizard, your volumes using the volume configuration wizards, and also took a look at how to monitor those devices once they've been created, as well as to take a look at all the media that you selected and configured.